Today we're doing an easy photo shoot that can make you a lot of money. It's also subscription style, so you keep getting paid every single month. In this video, we also meet this creepy bear and photograph pizza.
Hey yo, I really like pizza. I find it hard not to eat the pizza.
Welcome to today's video. Today, a bit of a speed round. We're creating an entire month of social media content for business within 1 hour. I'm building this specific video because a few people in the members group on Facebook asked, how do you actually get 30 usable and also very different images within 1 hour total? So I'm going to bring you along for the shoot today. Basically, the model behind this is that you're creating, this is an entire business strategy. So not only is it just like a time sensitive challenge, but basically the idea here is that you're creating a subscription-based photography company, which essentially means that you're going to the same businesses every single month over and over again, and you're generating their entire calendar of content for them. What this means for you as a photographer is that you now have a reliable paycheck. So for instance, you open 10 of these slots, you have 10 people paying you $500 a month to go in for that hour to shoot a bunch of social media content for them. All of a sudden, you're now making an additional $5,000 per month. And if you wanted to go as far to actually be the person that implements all of this and that you're actually the social media manager, there's an upsell there. If you want to start doing video content, there's an upsell there. So there's a lot of different opportunities within this. And in the course that I just released last week, I have all of my scripts, the way that I reach out to companies, as well as my pricing templates and a lot more information specifically on this business model. And then the last video in the course is how to take this kind of that potential maybe $5,000 income, you're doing this for 10 different businesses, into something that's actually maybe $10,000 a month or $15,000 a month to really just kind of become your full business. Not to say that this is exactly what you want to do, but this is kind of the way that I pivoted my business slightly when I saw earlier this year that there wasn't going to be a whole lot of weddings happening, and the weddings that were happening were definitely going to be modified, definitely going to be a lot smaller. So this is kind of where I took my business this year, and hopefully there's some good value in here. So let's head to the shoot. I'm here at Marshall's shop to pick Marshall up. He's gonna be doing a video today. Y'all remember Marshall, right?
Was that a good wave, or you want another wave? You want like a,
Want to stop at Justin Bieber's house? So the goal of this shoot is maximum efficiency, which means not every shot is going to be completely perfect, but the idea is to get enough images that are more than good enough to be shared on social media. If this was something like if we were going in to shoot the entire menu and everything had to be perfect, obviously this is going to take a lot longer than an hour, and quite honestly, the way we're going to shoot everything today might make some commercial and or food photographers just puke right now. I have with me 2 pieces of Bristol board. The idea is to light everything naturally and to make it look like it's actually part of the scene. So I don't want to bring in off-camera lights. Also, off-camera lights kind of slow down the efficiency overall. So by bringing this in, I can do a quick little white backdrop. So if I want to do a plate of food on a white wall backdrop, easy enough. Second one I can use to bounce some light in. And rather than setting up off-camera lights that are going to take too much time, we're going to get a lot of photos done more faster. That's not it. We arrive a little bit before the restaurant actually opens, so I can get some wide shots without people in there. Another option, this is kind of a basic template framework of what we do, but there are an unlimited number of permutations that you're able to bring in. If you want to bring in friends to sit and to do stock photos with them, that works. If you want to just approach random tables and ask if it's okay to take their photo, that works too, but it's a little more awkward. But today we're going to be starting with the wide angle lens, so we're going to get the wide angle shots of the empty restaurant for them to essentially post and be like, hey, like opening at 4 p.m. today, and give them some sort of image to include with a shot like that. All of these images I think are just generally reminders for the fact that like, hey, we're open, we exist. So again, not aiming for perfection with every single image, just aiming to get a lot of really great images really quickly. So when I arrive in a commercial space like this, usually the first thing I do is I actually turn off the lights, but in this case, the lights aren't really having too much of an impact on the scene, so I'm actually going to leave them on. And I'm gonna start everything with the wide angle lens. So this is the Nikon 14-24 f2.8. And I'm gonna start with all the wide angle shots that I need. I'm gonna do a lap outside. Then I'm gonna come back and put on the 24-70 and do kind of another lap just of the interior space with that. That was the countdown begins. So we have 1 hour starting now. Ooh, they just lit the fire right now. I don't know how close I can get my my lens in here. How hot does it get? I think I'm okay to that point. I'll go quick. Okay, that's probably enough of that. Thanks, dude. I don't want to spend too much time styling each individual shot. I'm more so kind of shooting around whatever's set up. If there's something that's obviously in the way, I'll move it, but otherwise I'm just kind of working with whatever the environment is. Another thing to keep in mind for social media sessions is that a number of images specifically on Instagram are going to end up being vertical, or if they are vertical, you'll get more screen space. As you're scrolling down your phone, you see a vertical image, it takes up a lot of the screen. If you're horizontal, you're just gonna be taking up 25% of the screen, or approximately. Vertical is gonna get you a lot more. So photograph in a way that you know you can crop into something that is better for social media. All right, with me for cameras today, I have the Nikon Z5 with the super wide, and then I also have the Canon R6 with the 35mm f1.8, and this lens is also a macro. It's also relatively inexpensive, which is kind of nice. And then for the Nikon Z5, I also have the 24-70 f2.8, which is, in my opinion, probably the most useful lens to have in an environment like this. That the wide angle is nice to have, but to have something a little more general, it's going to be a much better investment overall. Now I'm just gonna go for another quick spin around with the 24-70, get a few other just general frames, and also trying to avoid anything that's too season specific. Right now it's kind of Halloween, so I don't really want to include anything that's just like obviously Halloween, because the image, it'll be good for the next week, not even like next couple of days. Whereas if you create images that are a lot more general, that you can reuse these 3 months from now, 6 months from now, next year. Another important thing to do, obviously generate all the images that you would normally generate, but have also in mind that you want to create a couple of images for posters or for them to add text to. So even just kind of generic abstract things that are happening within the space that would fit nicely into the grid of the rest of their social media. For instance, even something like this door texture here, that an image of that might seem like the most useless image in the entire history of time, but it can find a use, especially for posters. And if you've ever tried to integrate text into an image, you know the more simple the image, the easier that is to do. So images like this will find a place, even if they just seem like the silliest image to take. Again, you want to make something that's just cohesive across the board. So when moving from an image from the pizza to here to a bike, everything just feels nice together. It feels like a polished brand. And that's kind of what your job is, to come in here and do that. Another thing to capture all the details that are in the space. So for instance, Fix Gear here has merch, so we're able to get a few merch photos. That is quite a terrifying bear. And you want to stay away specifically of terrifying bears. When you are photographing product, I would say that having 3 of those products is usually the best. If you try to do 4, I feel like even numbers just are a bit weird. So either a single product or groups of 3. You can also mix things up depending on what's available. There's really a lot more opportunities than I think that a lot of us realize when you just walk into a space like this. One of you, one of you, one of you. So first thing I'm looking for is good light. Outside in the shade is usually always your best available light. Pretty easy to set up like this. And so looking like a studio image with a 40-cent piece of Bristol board and just some good light out here in the shade. We can also do individuals of everything, and I think also the wood that we actually have the paper on is maybe an even better environmental portrait, as well as the steel that's behind Marshall over here. Another thing to add even more value, I think, is that when you are hired to do something like this, you're hired both as a photographer, but also a little bit of a marketing director as well. Here comes a very, very green Tesla. All right, simple setup like this. and a few good photo opportunities. I know I mentioned a minute ago about doing kind of that rule of 3, but I feel like in this specific case, 2 work pretty well. Also, from a marketing perspective, it's important to know what stories to actually tell. So for instance, they have a wood pizza oven, so clearly wood is very important. And the more that they can promote that on their Instagram, the more it's going to get people actually connected to their story and give people a reason to come here, like wood-fired pizza place right around the corner. And it's important to include exterior elements as well that kind of show what the place is. That one of the marketing points of this property is that it is in Guelph Junction here, right along the tracks. So we can involve the tracks in some of the photos. It gives people a better actual physical perspective that they've probably driven past this place at some point, and to again remind them on social media that, like, hey, you drive by here, this should be familiar to you. Again, we'll hopefully get people in the door. Beautiful. Cool.
Yeah, you guys need this set up.
We're sitting at 37 minutes, photographing a few pizzas. And then, quite honestly, we're probably gonna be done. The idea is basically to get as many variations of the pizzas or the food. If they're cooking something, if you can get 3 to 4 shots out of it, and keep in mind they're not gonna be posting them every single day back to back. Depending on the food, it's also nice to have a macro lens. I have the Canon 35 macro over there, but I don't think I actually need it. Pizza's bigger item. If I was photographing something a little bit smaller, might require it, but I am pretty happy with what I'm getting at 70 millimeters right here. I think it's also important to figure out what you can do better or what you can do differently next time. So now seeing how the pizzas all came together, how they went in the oven, I think that if I can bring some lighting in and maybe light just specifically that shot only next time, that gives me something at least to bring in to hopefully inspire myself to be able to kind of do essentially kind of the same shoot over and over again. You got to keep it interesting for yourself as well, because by month 10 or 12 of this, you're going to be kind of like, what do I do now? Bringing in different lighting, bringing in different ideas, and brainstorming while you're here, and basically doing all the problem solving before you actually arrive at the place. So when you arrive here, that you know exactly what you want to do next time. First shoot is simultaneously the easiest and also the hardest. Easiest because you have so many images that you can capture that every first impression you walk into a space, that's a photo, that's a photo, that's a photo. That is easy, but it's challenging because you're not going to be familiar with the space. You're not going to know exactly how the lighting all plays. And after month 1, hopefully you're going to be in a better place for month number 2. The other cool thing is that a restaurant has that these are 2 items that we're going to photograph this week, but there's probably another 20, 30 items that we could potentially take photos of over time. So you're not really going to run out of items, and then you'll start getting seasonal items, and you'll start getting different items that maybe are being introduced over time. So there really are a lot of opportunities. Cutting some wood?
I gotta cut some wood.
I'll photograph that. Another thing to keep in mind is if you are in a space and that real life is happening around you, so you can roll into the documentary style photographer like Mike cutting wood over here. A very integral part of the business, and the business owner cutting his own wood. I didn't expect needing a high frame rate camera today, but the 4.5 frames a second, not really cutting it. I think I got one of those. So a lot of it is just finding what environmentally is working that day. Things are going to change month to month. And today, wood-fired pizza on pieces of wood, I feel like is a very good marketing image and kind of says everything that you can about this pizza just in one still frame. And maybe one last thing to keep in mind is to photograph a little wider than you might usually, because Instagram, you're gonna have to crop, you might be adding text. There's a lot of different options for what's gonna happen with this image. So by being a little bit wider than you normally would be, you're gonna save yourself trying to clone and draw in little pieces kind of all around the edges of the frame. One of the other benefits is that you get to usually come home with lunch from these styles of shoots, and also acts as a very nice reflector for me, right? We're going to head home. I will show you how I edit through these files and make my selects and just kind of go all the way through to the final images. So let's head home. Welcome back to the studio. As I said, well, we're not the studio, we're at the home studios over there. As I mentioned, that this course, basically the entire business model for this is available as a link in the description below. If you're part of the member site, you get access to it. And essentially what that is it is everything that you need to know to get a subscription style business model for your photography company up and running. I guess the idea for me was that it was something that didn't necessarily take the place of my full-time income as a wedding and events photographer, but it was definitely something that could supplement that income. And then I realized that as events were kind of going down this year, that I needed to step this up a little bit. So it's nice to have an ongoing paycheck. You can also, there's a number of different ways that you can kind of work this deal, that if they're paying for all 12 months up front, maybe they get a better rate, or if they're going quarterly or whatever it might be. There's more on that in the course, but there's lots of options with it. So to pick the bits and pieces that actually kind of work the best for you. So looking at the images here, these are the images that I have selected from the shoot. Basically what I do is I begin with all of the images. So here's all the images right here. And then I go down to kind of a first cull. I go through, this is a program called Photo Mechanic. You can just do this in Lightroom as well. I just found in the past Photo Mechanic's a little bit faster, and also I like having the separation of my selection program followed by the actual Lightroom editing section of it. I like that. If that's not for you, just by all means do this all in Lightroom. I go through, I select, in this case, I selected 75 images that were kind of nice. As you can see, kind of some duplicates in here. Not really the best if they were trying to upload this. Like, a lot of these images are gonna look the same. So then I go through again and I tag everything with my number 2, which is this yellow color here. So getting rid of all of those. I guess yellow kind of stayed down here. There's only a few that I got rid of. And then moving into green, which brings me closer to 30. We got 31 images total. A few are duplicates. So these 2 images here of Mike chopping wood, I felt that both of them were strong. I feel like they can both be used at different times, but I feel like they visually are very much the same. I feel like this has a great story because Mike is the business owner, and I think that that's something that like is just funny that everyone's going to engage with. Everybody knows him at the restaurant, so that'll be funny. And then this is just a little bit more of kind of an abstract image that it doesn't necessarily have to actually involve Mike. So to go through all of these, again, photographing from a marketing standpoint. So wood fire pizza, #1 sales thing, I think, getting people in the door right now. This could also easily be blurred out into a poster, or it can be posted like this just to add. I feel like it just goes, all of these images go very well aesthetically together. There is one outlier image, the image that we shot on white over here. I feel like that is the single outlier image. That's the photo straight out of camera. So as you can see, like something like that, I feel like blends better into the brand, but something like this is nice to have. I feel like there's kind of, if you were to shoot all of the product, you were to shoot all of the menu items, even if you kind of broke it out, again, no rules to this business model. If you went in 1 month and all you shot was food, I would be shooting an environmental portrait of that food, and then I would be bringing it into this white backdrop to get those 2 frames at least. And by doing something like that, I feel like you kind of get the best of both worlds, that you are able to post something like this. Maybe this goes very well on the Instagram story. And then the alternate is that they might even license this for print outside of actual social media use. So that's in the contract, that if they're using something on specifically their website, or if they're using something, for instance, like the stores that would sell beer around here, if this is ending up as like an advertisement or something like that, which I think it easily could be, or if they're adding text or whatever it might be, if it's a use outside of social media, we talk different prices and build a licensing deal based on that. So I think it is, since you're in there, you might as well kind of get both of these and let somebody else decide what ones they want to use, and maybe decide if they want to use them outside of social media, which I always think is great. So let's go through here. Wood, got some wood fire, really like this. I wish I could have got in here more, but I did fear for the gear. Something like this is nice. I don't love the fact there's two flaws in here. Again, we're trying to get a lot, not perfect. There's a bit of a clipped highlight. If I would have moved like slightly to the right, I bet that would have disappeared, or maybe to the left. And then also the little blue tags are on here. Not a big deal. I don't think really anyone would notice, or if they did notice, that they would care. Again, efficiency, getting as much as you can. Outside, really like this blue sky day, just kind of working with whatever's working on the day. We got nice skies, might as well spend some time outside. So next time you're there, if it's overcast, it just doesn't look quite as good. This looks nice and warm. A little bit of sun flare kicking in here. Really kind of liking this scene. It's a little bit distorted, a little bit too wide angle almost for social media. I would say that like the key is to take something around 35 millimeters. I feel like 35 is like the nicest spot to be on social media when people are scrolling through. If you shot something with an 85 1.2, that image is very much going to look like an advertisement. Whereas if you've shot something with a 35 millimeter lens, or even I guess in this case 20 or 14 is still okay. All my settings are up over here. Even if you shot something at this, I feel like it's okay. But if you can be around 35, I feel like it blends into a social media feed a little bit better, and you get less of that like, oh, advertisements skip past. Outside, you can fix these little highlights in post. Beautiful photo, right? This is like award-winning. This is why you get paid the big bucks to take photos of wood. As I mentioned, that this is simply just to put some letters on here. They can put the Fix Here logo. They can kind of do whatever they want on this wood. But again, it'll blend nicely into the rest of their feed with all of the other environmental photos. I ended up using the 24 to 70 version of this. Again, like at 35 or 30, I guess, in this case, 30.5. I felt like that fit better. The wide angle lens was good. And then I don't do too much in Photoshop, but I will remove these bottles here. I should have just moved them in real life, but I didn't. So that's an easy enough content aware replace. You just kind of circle them and hit Shift Delete and hope that they disappear. If they don't, you got to go and more specifically into it. But I think that should probably do a pretty good job. Creepy eyes on the bear. Product shot, might crop eyes. Not sure. Could make this a vertical just with the logo. We'll figure that out in a minute. I think 1 or 2 decor photos. So the brand isn't in this. It's just kind of I guess the brand is in this, but it's a bike, fixed gear. It's a bike. I feel like it's just something that's nice to post to remind people of the story of kind of the behind the scenes, why this brand exists. Simple shot of the menu. Important to have, especially I would say the ideal is to turn these around as fast as you possibly can. And if they're updating their beer menu every week and you can come in and grab one nice photo of it for them to post, this might even be an Instagram story since it's going to be a little bit longer as far as aspect ratio goes. So get these photos turned around to them as fast as possible. And there's also, I would say, an option specifically like if you want to make more money on a specific client or at that single stop, that you can do something like you guarantee that those images will be turned around within 24 hours of the shoot or 48 hours or whatever you're comfortable with. But that is one add-on that you can do to either make the deal better or to make a little bit more money on each stop. Something like this, there's almost too much going on here. This is not my favorite photo from the shoot, but it does feature their product. It does feature the word craft beer, which I think is important to, again, keep reaffirming. Product shots. This is they have one can that's in our liquor store situation's a bit weird up here in Ontario. So they have one, this is the one that's in the liquor stores. So I feel like it's important to focus a little bit more on it. White balance on this sucks, but we're gonna fix that in a minute. White wall, it looks good. It looks like a studio shot, but again, doesn't really fit the brand aesthetic. Something like that fits a heck of a lot better. Again, leaving nice space around here so they can add text or they can crop it kind of any way that they want. More cans with iron, other cans. I love the design of this. This is my favorite design, I think, of all of them. Here, I'm going to focus more attention and more time on figuring out how to do this shot next time when I'm back. I am not a trained food photographer, so I'm figuring out a lot of it as I go. And one of the cool things about going back every single month is the fact that you get to iterate on maybe what you tried and you didn't get 100%, that you can go back and you can do it better next time. So I'm gonna figure out a way to do this shot better. I think it simply might be that we pretty much finish the pizza and then we pull it out and we leave it somewhere around here for me to focus on with the fire in the background. and that way I might be able to get a little flash in there if I need it to actually light it up properly. But we'll talk more about that on another video. Here is the pizza coming out of the oven. Unfortunately, not a finished pizza because more green elements, as you saw, go on top of here, but I think that looks pretty good. White balance a little bit wacky, but we're gonna fix that. This is kind of showing like that you don't necessarily need a macro lens. Like I don't need to be closer to the pizza than this. I feel like this is fine. I don't even think this is my minimum focusing distance. I'm at 70 millimeters, and I feel like I could have got a little bit closer. I also could have framed off this way a little bit. Again, done, not perfect. Here we go into another environmental pizza portrait. I like this better of that shot, but I would say that this shot to this shot is very, very different and very easy for them to integrate both of those throughout a month, no problem. Down here into the margarita pizza as a last photo. I'm pretty happy with that. I also have the margarita pizza in this configuration as well, which I likely will give them. Any product shots I feel like that are just nice to haves, I don't think you should cap it at 30. You should always over deliver a little bit. So by giving them maybe 40 images or 45 images or whatever, even if some are duplicates, or at least kind of, I basically photographed the margarita pizza in the exact same way right here. Even if they are duplicates, it's not like, they're not gonna complain as long as they kind of have the 30 that they need. All right, loading all of the images over here into Lightroom. I'm just gonna process through these very quickly. If you are a member of the member site, you get access to all of these presets. So all of my preset packs, which are pretty much all of these. I think that's all of them. So you have access to those if you're a member. If you're not a member, you can get them individually or as a group outside of the membership if you wish, but it makes more sense, sign up the membership for even a month, get what you need. They don't expire if you do stop becoming a member at some point. It is probably beneficial for you if you know that you have an ongoing client like this, that you should make a preset for them specifically. So something modified on something that you use or modified on one of these. I know that this Film 1 preset from my 2020 pack is going to be the one that I will likely be using for all of these images. It is a little bit more gritty, a little bit more process looking, but I feel like it very much goes with the brand and the aesthetic that they've created. I feel like it's also something that just like generally looks good and goes with this style, I guess, of their brand overall. If I was photographing like a clothing shop that was a lot more bright and airy, I would not be using this preset. I would be using something that enhances kind of that bright and airy feeling. And if the walls are all painted like light tones or whites or neutrals or whatever it might be, I would be doing something that complements that. So I think that the film preset complements this specifically, and that image right there is done for me. What I'll actually do is I'll do film, I'll click that, add that to this image right here, and then I will actually sync that across the entire board here. So I hit shift to select everything, or shift and then clicked on the last one here. And then I'm gonna go basic tone, and I think white balance, I probably just left it on shade the entire day. So I'm gonna synchronize all of those, and then I will begin editing. So straight out of camera images, you just saw them back in the last section there. And now, quite honestly, I'm pretty happy with that overall. This looks really, really cool. Jeez. So probably too warm, but I'm literally photographing fire, so I think it's okay to leave it a little bit too warm. I'm also doing a screen record, so Lightroom is going a little bit more slow than usual. Yeah, I am pretty happy with that image there. I need to figure out a way to get a camera in there. Again, upset about the blown highlight there. I can do what I can to bring it back, but I think it's okay. I don't think anyone's gonna really notice and be like, this isn't up to like perfection quality. No one's ever gonna call it out on that. It's more so the focus kind of up here and on this side, and I feel like people get that. And I think that as far as branding goes, there are so many there's like 40 logos in this specific image. So I'm pretty happy with it. Again, might be a little bit too warm, but it goes with the orangeness, I think, of the brand without being like too crazy overly orange. Also, when the images kind of are loading, there's a little more grain in them. If you're interested in getting rid of that grain, you can just do that in there's a grain, it's one of the menus way down there. I am pretty happy with that overall. Moving to the next image, and I can add a little bit more warmth. When the sun's in there, it's nice to just kind of warm the image up. That's too warm. Maybe somewhere around there fits pretty nicely. Yeah, happy with that. Bring back some of those highlights and maybe even more dynamically rich situation here. I also should have been a little more careful with the shadow that's cutting through here, but I think that works pretty well. my most beautiful frame the entire session here. I don't even know what is considered straight, maybe that. With the windows here, I'm okay to let these go to white because what's going on out there really isn't that exciting, and I would almost rather leave it like that than actually bring back the detail. And as I said, I'm gonna clean this image up just a little bit in Photoshop. And since I'll be doing that, I'm getting rid of these little spray cans here. I'll probably also get rid of this little Running Man sign. But other than that, I'm pretty happy. I'll let them decide to include the creepy eyes if they want to or not. But that image, it's kind of one click done. This is a little bit too warm even for a warm brand. You can just use the little dropper tool that I just clicked on up here to give you something that's a little closer to real life, but warmer brand can probably sit comfortably somewhere around there. All right, white balance is wrong. Let's see if that works. That got pretty close. A little warmer, a little brighter. Add natural contrast. I usually add contrast rather than like just dragging the contrast slider. I'll run the exposure up a little bit and then the black point down. And usually that's makes more natural contrast than just like running the contrast slider. So maybe a little too much going on here. Wouldn't be upset if they leave that one out of the mix. And again, give extras so that if they do leave one out, that they're not left with like 28 images to post this month from your work. Getting a little closer to something more natural there. I think that looks pretty good. Awesome. So the preset kind of cleaned this up. I said that I hated the white balance of this one prior. The white balance cleaned it up a little bit. That is way too much exposure to knock in there. All this is doing is basically a gradient filter. So it's starting off a lot darker here and fading out. So whatever your settings are here, it starts out kind of at 100%. And then slowly as it gets to about, I think this is probably maybe I don't know what the lines mean, but basically by the time it gets to this line here, it is applying 0% to the actual, to the image. So as you can see, dragging around here, somewhere around there might be all right. I think that looks pretty good for a 40-cent piece of Bristol board. All right, moving into the last couple of images here. I've actually added a radial filter here, so I'm kind of just made my own little personal vignette. Something I do pretty often, I would say, in food photography. Try not to overdo it though. If you're really casting a strong vignette, it's very, very obvious and the photo starts to look a little processed, but something like that I feel like looks pretty nice. I'm gonna warm it up just a little bit because we were in the shade there. And again, to match brand warmth, I think overall. It's also, I guess, like outside of that, to speak to the marketing a little bit of why I like warm images and why I like warm images specifically for a restaurant is because at least up here in Canada right now, we're leading into winter pretty soon, and basically like a warm place to be is a lot nicer than a place that's been processed very, very cool tones. So I would say restaurant, I would say anywhere that you want to look warm and inviting, that you can do that a little bit through through your images by just making them a little bit warmer than maybe you would otherwise. Again, talk with the brand, figure out what is exactly right for them and for you. But otherwise, I'm pretty much done here with these images. So I'm gonna hit export and I'm going to send them over, and the process really didn't take that long. It might have taken me maybe a half hour from start to finish had I just sat down and just done this. So you're looking at maybe an hour for the shoot. Didn't even end up being a full hour that we were there, and a half hour for post-production. And I think that you can really create a lot of work very quickly if you are motivated. You know that this is the time frame, I need to go in, I need to get this done. Use it as motivation, I guess, to go in there and make everything just happen in the shortest time frame. Because again, well, I guess maybe I didn't even mention this, but the reason that I want it to be an hour is because I don't want to take up too much time of the restaurant's time. That the more efficient I can be and the faster I can just make it, like that I don't even have to exist, that they came in, they set up, I did photos, they made two pizzas in this case, and then we're gone within like basically 10 minutes after they opened, we were out of there. So as I guess like as myself as a photographer coming in, I feel like that's almost a selling proposition, that I am so low impact that I don't need to set up lights. I don't need to have the facility for a half day and turn off lights and kick customers out of that area, that I can come in, I can shoot all this in an open restaurant if we have to, like it's no big deal. So I think this is maybe a tip for photography across the board, that in a lot of cases, I feel like the industry, everything's, I would say, very polarized as far as when you go into a corporate shoot, that they're either expecting you to put up the big show, all the lights, do the whole thing, spend 2, 4, 8 hours there getting one headshot, or they're a small business like what we shot at today that are just like, hey, can you just get it done and not do all that stupid stuff? Like, we don't need the show. And if they understand that, they're a client that I'm super happy to work with. So I think we did some great work today, and we will be back again next month, and then the next month, and then you're gonna just generate a huge volume of work. And by the end of the year, they're gonna have 360 usable and slightly different images that all kind of go together to be able to basically reuse throughout. Now they can do 2 images a day if they want, because they have this huge back catalog of content. Obviously things change, menu items change, but for the most part, as long as you're creating this ongoing work, they are going to continue to find a use for it on social media over time, and they're going to be very happy to have you. And also, you're not over delivering. You're not going in, you're not giving them 300 images that they have to sort through, that when you give them such limited numbers, every single image has a use, has a purpose, has been specifically edited, and has value to them. So yeah, if you are interested in finding out more about the entire course, there's a link in the description below. The main thing, like, you can make this a paycheck that comes in every single month for your photography business, and just, I think that it relaxes anxiety, especially as a wedding photographer, that I need to be making that first sale over and over and over again. And to have something like this to know that I'm generating at least some money really does relax myself, my brain, I guess, overall, to know that I have that paycheck and I have a thing to look forward to, and I can be thinking about different ways to do these shots throughout the month, which is something that I just find personally interesting, as well as working within that box and just trying to create as much as you possibly can in a short time frame. I find that's fun for me. So thank you so much for watching. Please like this video if you enjoyed this video, and feel free to subscribe if you want to subscribe. I'll see you again another time.